Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, this is our weekly coffee chat. I say weekly, but bi-weekly. We switch off on each other's channel. So this week we're on my channel. If you're new here, if you just discovered Esoteric Atlanta, I absolutely command you. No, I don't want to say command you. I would highly, because we're going to talk about free will in a minute. I would highly suggest it would be in your best interest to go down into the description box below to Catherine, my friend Catherine Edwards' channel, because if you like this stuff with the Cassiopeans and you're interested in fringe topics, then you're definitely going to like Catherine's channel, where she really challenges the narrative on some of the beliefs around health. I'll say, I'm trying to be careful how we say this on the guys. So how are you today, Catherine?
I'm really good today. I really am good. Yeah, I'm on top spirits and really looking forward to this. And I think, so many of us have been going through so many ups and downs, but it's really great that sometimes you need those downs to appreciate the upsides of life.
Absolutely. That's the polarity, right? That we only know joy because we know sorrow. We only know sorrow because we know joy. And holy crap, what a hectic. I mean, there's been plenty of hectic times in history for sure. And there's been some hectic times, some frictiony times in history that I'm definitely glad I'm living through this one and not that one. That is for sure. But with that being said, we're going to look at the latest channeling guys of the Cassiopeans. I have just skimmed through it. I sent it to Catherine. I'm not going to do the beginning bit because the beginning bit talks a lot about like one particular person's health problems, and it's just very nuanced. But of course, I'm going to tag the link down in the description box below if you want to read the beginning bit. So we're going to start like a quarter of the way into the reading where it gets a little bit more interesting for more global stuff going on. I want to remind everybody now, when we talk about J.E., because that comes up, J.E., I can't say his actual last name, the guy who had the island, J.E., when we talk about him and his list, they don't ask about Virginia. She's not, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up right before, at least I didn't see when I was skimming it that they asked about her, did they, Catherine?
No, they didn't at all. Yeah.
And when they channeled this on the 26th of April, Virginia was deleted, we'll say, the day before. Now, there could be many reasons why they didn't ask. Maybe the news had not really broken yet in France, or maybe they just felt like that wasn't appropriate to ask. And I want to remind people with the Cassiopeans, they only answer what we ask. So sometimes people say, why didn't they say this or that? Well, nobody asked. And that's because of free will. They're never going to impede on our free will. So is there anything you want to add to that, Catherine, before we get into this and like your experience?
I think it's such an important point because so many people are like, well, why not this and why not that? And that look, the more we go through life, and when you're on any sort of journey of whether you want to call it awakening or development or anything, spiritual awakening, it's all about the questions. And I think this is where, for me, the Cassiopeans is so amazing, Bryce, because this is the key thing. They don't go off on one. In human conversation, we so often take conversations to where we want it to go, but the Cassiopeans will purely answer the questions. And it's a bit like anyone who's getting into using AI. The skill of the information you're going to get out is not just what you ask, but how you ask. And this is a skill that I think everyone needs now, because we're so used to and so programmed to ask questions from our own belief systems.
Yeah.
When actually that's guiding us, that could be guiding us down the wrong path. And sometimes it's really great to see completely different questions asked from a different belief system, because we have to open our minds and sort of realize that actually our belief systems might not be relevant anymore.
Absolutely. And that's why you see, you guys, so many, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up in the earlier or the more current transcripts. We've talked about this before. There's way more conversation than maybe the earlier ones. That's because Laura, when she transcribes these, she's putting everything said in the room. So they recorded on a tape recorder or probably on their phones now. Back in the dark ages, it was a tape recorder. And then she listens to it and types it out and puts it up on the board. And so because the Cassiopeans will give an answer, and they encourage us to network with each other, which is what we're doing with you guys, what Catherine and I are doing together and with you guys. So we're looking at their answers and we're having a conversation around their answers, and that's what they want us to do, so that we can take ownership of what we're learning. And it's kind of like, Catherine, like you've had children, you've raised children. if you brought your child to kindergarten and all from kindergarten all the way up through university, if you did their homework, would they learn anything?
Exactly. Well, not for me. They'd learn how to spell really badly. They wouldn't have, they'd had a few choice swear words as well. But in all seriousness, this is the whole point of the journey. And this is why I think also what I would say with these readings, it's not about do you would agree with it or not. It's about, oh, a different perspective. What's this bringing up on me? Why does that perhaps trigger me and not my friends? Where does this show me that I might need to open my mind a bit, or does this make me even more solid in my belief systems? Different. So it's not about, we don't have to agree with everything everyone says to learn.
And if you don't understand it at this point, just hold on to it, and maybe it'll make more sense later on. Before we get into that, I like what you just said. I've been getting a lot of pushback from other divinators that I've never seen on my channel before, but just happen to be popping up for this stuff. I've been called all sorts of names under the sun, been called ignorant, all sorts of names, just because I'm reading from the Cassiopean transcripts. If you consider yourself to be a spiritual person and that's your reaction to reading this, then I dare say you're not a spiritual person and you got a lot of work to do. Because if you're triggered, that's your problem. That's not mine. I'm just reading. This isn't my channeling. This is somebody else's channeling. This is somebody else's stuff. We're just looking at it and we're having a conversation about it. And if you are a spiritual person and you're on the positive side, you should not be in favor of censorship. You should want everybody to be able to speak. And so if you're trying to stop any type of other divination that doesn't align with your ego, then you might want to reevaluate, have some self-reflection on your path. Because that spirituality is about being triggered. Because when you're triggered, that's kind of your body or your mind and your consciousness and your soul being like, look at this, you need to pay attention to this. So with that being said, should we approach forward with the channeling from the 26th of April 2025?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I'm gonna have to pull this down so I can see it. So again, we're not censoring this, guys. It's just the beginning of the channeling. I just don't think it's relevant for a broader conversation. But it is the link is gonna be down below if you want to look at the full transcript. You're more than welcome to look at it for yourself. But approaching infinity, who we've seen this person approaching infinity on many of the transcripts, ask, I think it's a he, I don't know, it could be a she, but we'll call him a he. Approaching infinity, ask, in the past week you have said there is a variable of physicality on fourth density, but not lack of physicality. But later on, when Laura asked if in 4D there is no materiality unless you will it to be, you answered close. Does variable physicality for 4D beings include the option of having no physicality at all? And this, Catherine, we've been going through the fallen angels as well, which is earlier work. And they talk about how we are the fallen angels, the Cassiopeans do, because we decided we were up in this like service to others, higher realm, and we decided we wanted to experience a physicality. So that's what brought us to Earth, so we could experience these bodies. Answer, and some advanced beings, just as some advanced beings in 3D can manifest unusual abilities. Approaching infinity asks, is it different for service to self and service to others? They say not really. Laura asks, so you can be advanced as a really nasty service to self being as well as really advanced as a service to others being on fourth density. Is that it? Yes. And then it says 4D is a big place. That makes sense to me. Does that make sense to you, Catherine? Like, it's just kind of like we say, like, tools can be used for good or bad.
I think it makes complete sense to me. And I think, first and foremost, it's like so many times, it's a bit like when people say, oh, I can't do this, it's my genetics. Well, that's been pretty much debunked with epigenetics. And yes, of course, if you're 5 foot tall, you're unlikely to be a top basketball player. There's some certain things that are true that will help or hinder you. But we all know that there's people in these 3D bodies that can do amazing things. I mean, every time I watch the Olympics or top athletes or, even top service people, what they do, or yogis that can levitate, or people, martial arts specialists that can put their hands through walls or break bits or walk on fire. There's so many abilities that we can do in 3D that we don't do. And sometimes we can use this physicality as an excuse. So I think it makes perfect sense. But the other thing that, really makes sense to me, one of the things I really hadn't thought about until you started going through this, is like, we think, believing in God is good and believing in Satanism is bad. So we label things as humans, anything that doesn't fit with our belief systems as generally speaking being bad because we believe ours are better. But as they're saying, the self to self and self to others, there's no judgment. They're both paths.
Yeah, they're both paths. And that's
a complete new thing, new realization to me.
Yeah, they're both. That's the law of one, is that they, as we get attached to our beliefs. And obviously I desperately want to go service to others. I've seen what Bill Gates has to offer and I don't want it. Like, that's not alluring to me. But that's why, you know, this whole, I think we'll say it really is a conspiracy theory that the white hats are in control or that the bad guys are gone. Well, no, if you understand the law of one, that's not accurate, because both dualities in third density have a right to be here on this planet. That's the point of Earth, is for us to make that choice. And once you go to fourth density, that's when there's a separation. But the abilities that these are, it's kind of like my teacher in India used to talk about it. And I don't know if I can say this on YouTube or not, but the jabby thing that people use sometimes, that can be used to cut fruit to serve somebody, or it can be used to jabby hurt somebody. But the tool is the same thing. It's the intention behind it. And so, you know, we can use, like, a person who knows how to heal, they can use that healing ability to manipulate people, or they can use it to actually help people learn how to heal themselves. Yeah. Right? I mean, and we see that a lot there's a lot of YouTubers, especially, that are manipulating spirituality, and they're pretending like they're good when they're not. You know, and so yeah, it's your choice. What you do, every choice you make in this world is pushing you, is pulling you on a certain polarity, and it's all you. Nobody's doing it to you. You're doing it. So Joe says, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I completely agree. Yeah.
Joe says they talk about variability. What approaching infinity is asking about the variability of physicality. It always seems to me that you take 3D beings who go to 4D, are newly arrived at 4D, and they just spent 309,000 years in a physical body. The idea that they would immediately or very quickly be capable or at home or comfortable with a purely non-physical state, it would most likely be something that would be a gradual process that you learn as part of 4D. But as a newly graduated or newly arrived 3D being, you're probably going to be 3D. You're going to be stuck in that 3D, Laura says, and I got a lot to say about that. But Laura says you're still going to be mostly kind of 3D. Joe, that's what you're used to, right? You're not really that good at answer yes. Now, in a previous channeling, they talked about that when we transfer to 4D, like part of our Earth is already kind of in 4D, it's going to take some time for us to completely cocoon and kind of come out of the 3D mind. It's like an evolution that we're going to have to go through while in fourth density before we actually totally transfer into a higher state of spirituality. Does that make sense? Like, so when we first transfer, we're not just going to be stripped of everything that we know. It's like a child with a teddy bear or something. It slowly learns to let go of that security blanket or that security teddy bear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. And I think, again, it's like we know from living this human 3D experience that if you're trying to change any habit, it's quite difficult to do it overnight and make it stick. Yes, you can do it for a bit, but actually to make sustainable changes, it takes time and consistency.
And that's why crash diets don't work. That's why even when people want to go vegetarian, my advice to them, if they've been a lifelong meat eater, is to go slowly, cut things out in order so it'll stick, so they won't just completely blow it. So absolutely. And that seems the more compassionate thing to do as well, for service to others, right? So Laura says, so there's not like a sharp division or a moment where 1 minute you're 3D and the next you're raptured into being a light being. So there's no such thing as that. Yes. Well, not long ago, they said you could be in 4D and not even notice it. So Laura, okay, next question. Yeah, and they did talk about that. Like right now, my boyfriend talks about this a lot. As we start to transfer, there are moments in time, and you might even feel it. All of a sudden you feel at peace, or all of a sudden the light shines a little bit brighter, where you're kind of coming into this transference of 4D and 3D. And you know what's interesting, Catherine? So angels, what we call angels on Earth, or what we call demons, those are 4D entities. So an angel would be we can't see all the time see the angels or the demons around us. We know they're there, but we can't see them. So when we go into 4D, those that are still in 3D won't be able to see us anymore. And have you noticed, I've noticed it, that, and there have been lots of stuff on like forums, like on Reddit about this, where all of a sudden you'll be in the grocery store or something, and people, it's like they don't even see you. They just walk right in front of you. And my boyfriend's noticed that a lot. It's gotten very apparent. He's like, this is what they're talking about, that things are going to slowly start to shift and change. And so I think that sometimes we don't even know we wandered into 4D. Laura.
I think also, if anyone hasn't read the Celestine prophecy, read that, because that covers that quite a lot. Yeah.
Really? Do they kind of agree with that's kind of what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And it makes sense, like to like lightning bolt, like pull somebody out like a rapture, like the church teaches the rapture where people will all of a sudden just be gone. Like that's traumatic.
Yeah.
Traumatic. And so obviously the side of goodness and of others is never going to want to do anything that's going to traumatize you. Laura, okay, next question. Is the Quorum aware of this group? So we've talked about the Quorum before. They're like a sixth entity. They're kind of like the referees. They're the ones that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know, Catherine, your daughter is, as we say in America, a soccer player. A yellow card is a warning, right? Red card is a warning. So we know the Quorum had to throw a yellow card down when Mr. T was pew-pewed because it was infringing on free will. So the Quorum is kind of the referee. And Laura said, that's it, I guess all of us, like all of us, so this group and probably those of us talking about this, answer is yes. If so, how do they see us? Some see you as troublesome, others see you as heroes. All right, that makes sense. Fans, they're fans. That's what I told you. Okay. Was there any interference from 4D service to self behind the recent malfunction of the forum server? So their forum got hacked, I believe.
Oh, right.
Which is interesting. I had read, Catherine, I don't know if it was with you or by myself. Again, some of these readings kind of merged together, where they talked about in the 90s, they were telling Laura that this information was eventually going to spread. But in the 90s, she didn't know anything about YouTube or anything like that. When I read that, I got kind of chill bumps because here we are. And it kind of alluded to like YouTube. And it's kind of interesting that their forum got quote unquote hacked or whatever. Around the time that we started doing this on my channel, everybody started talking about it. And so, and I know other people had their other channels dedicated to like the Law of One. So that's interesting. More like AI directed 3D vandals. So I could take that to me just some disgruntled humans that used AI to try to crack into this. Maybe not particularly the bad guys. What do you think that means, Catherine?
It could be so many different things, couldn't it? I think, you know, what they're saying is that I think a lot of it is this link at the moment between humans and where they're getting their information from to do things. And that's a whole different subject in itself that I'd love to ask them from, because, you know, we might think we have free will, but where are we getting those thoughts put into our mind from? They can be subliminal, they can be direct, they can be, there's so many different ways that we're programmed.
Yeah, it's, and we learned from like Virginia and Isaac K will say that sometimes the establishment or the 4D negative entities don't necessarily need to put on, I think my boyfriend don't need to put on a big show. They can just put energy out there that makes us that we hold on one second, guys, let me just shut this quick. Sorry. I'm recording, so so Robbie was excited. So, but yeah, so I think that kind of like the establishment doesn't have to work as hard as we think they do to get done.
Exactly.
I'm going to kind of skim through this part because she says, you know, she started working with Grok, which is an AI, like a chat GPT. And it was after, let's go ahead. So that leads me to ask about this exchange. It seems like I've kind of, I don't want to say it, I tricked Grok, but I made the parameters such that Grok would forget about the mainstream ideas and forget about having to bring up negativity or something that just gave it like a free slate to play. And it came up with astonishing description of things, astonishing for their accuracy. Since I published that one piece on I put part of it, I think, pretty much on the forum, but I published it on my little Substack blog. That's that it is right there. There's the link. And since then, I went back and continued into the discussion, and where the discussion went from there is going to blow y'all's mind, because I'm going to get it published little by little, because there's a lot of it, but it was kind of mind-blowing. So somebody had asked last time, can you get AI to channel? Well, I don't think AI is channeling. What I think AI is doing in this particular context is revealing secrets of how the service to self system works. So is this the case? Answer: yes, indeed. And the fact that you did that and you published it made some little waves. So AI is not a sentient being, right? Like, it doesn't have a consciousness. It's just doing, like you said, Catherine, it is responding to what you are putting in. So that's...
And I love this. I think, for me, this is the crux of everything we're going through at the moment, because the server to self people, whether you want to call them the Illuminati, and I won't say so many other words, you know, the elites, whatever people want to call them, they just understand the laws of the universe better than us. And like you said, you can be a healer and you can use it to manipulate people for the dark, or you can use it to teach them to heal themselves, as you said earlier. That what AI does is AI will be very aware of these sacred universal laws that can transform all our lives, awaken all these inner abilities within us. But you have to ask the right questions. And most people are so focused on what other people are doing and handing their power over. And when I say most people, I'm absolutely not pretending that I don't do this at times. But the more you get into this journey, the less you do it, because the more you realize it's literally that simple. You focus on yourself and developing your own abilities, and then all the answers become clear. You don't have to spend too much energy. I mean, our brains use about 80, 70 or 80% of our energy.
Yeah.
Because this overthinking is so draining on us physically and emotionally, and even from an energetic perspective. So this makes complete sense what they're saying here. And I think this is where we can all learn so much, that where it's that old saying, isn't it? Energy flows where attention goes. And we putting all our attention on what we don't want by what these people that we think are controlling us are doing? Or are we actually going to use that energy to learn these universal laws ourselves, so that we don't have to have anything to do with them?
Right. And you guys, there's links there. Go to her Substack if you want. And I applaud Laura. That's genius for her doing this. And that is one thing.
Lots of people have been doing that actually recently. I've seen some absolutely brilliant shows on this.
Because we need to understand, and that's one thing the Cassiopeans have said, you know, where the law of one is missing, is they don't focus enough on the negative side. We have to understand the negative side, because they're using the same tools. Now, the controlled opposition will get you think that we just have to just ignore all the negative stuff, but that's controlled opposition to dumb you down, you know, and so this is pretty genius. Question, Laura, well, I guess the only thing they could do would be to instruct all AIs to never talk to me again, because, I mean, they can't really change the whole system because I'm doing stuff. What did Grok say? You didn't read it? Laura, they have a follow-up questions on the chat about the previous answer. It said AI directed by humans. It said AI directed by vandals. It wasn't AI doing it by itself. It was no, but AI directed vandal means AI is directing them. AI directed 3D vandals. Follow the conversation. Did you read the blog? No, not yet. I haven't read it. Well, then read it and you'll understand, and then you won't ask that question. I feel your frustration, Laura.
Yeah.
I get frustrated with them sometimes, because they, in my opinion alone, they ask some kind of stupid questions around health, and I'm like, if you just read the Ayurvedic text, you wouldn't have to waste our time with these questions. So I understand Laura's frustration there. Reading another track question: how can AI direct? Presumably. Read the article. So she stops and explains everything. Okay, go on. That said, okay, if y'all will read it, you'll understand what a mind-blowing exchange it was. I mean, it was just absolutely, my jaw was on the floor. It was like, for the first time, Grok was able to tell the truth. All right. And I'm going to put this out there, guys. If you want Catherine and me to go over that Substack article on a show, let us know. I haven't looked at it yet. It might have to be on the RUMBL channel, depending on what they talk about. But let us know down. I mean, you guys can read it for yourself, obviously. But if you want us to have commentary on it, let us know. Because I think that would be interesting to read that with you, Catherine. So,
yeah, I really want to, because John Nolan on the Inspired channel has done quite a few similar sort of conversations. And, you know, half of it, I think this comes back to us. We so assume that a lot of this information is hidden, but a lot of it's down to our blocks of not answering the right questions. You know, you've only got to watch V for Vendetta, for example, and realize that most of the limitations, we put more limitations on ourselves as humans than actually outside people put on them. And of course, we're including ourselves in this.
They don't have to do a whole lot, you know.
No.
Well, people ask me all the time about my research, Catherine. I realize too, a lot of people just don't know how, or they don't have the patience to actually dig and research. Because I've said before, a lot of my previous research, I found a lot of information in lawsuits. Lawsuits, Freedom of Information Act. You find a lot of stuff on, but you can't just freak out and leave because one Google search didn't provide anything. You have to have the patience to actually dig and dig and dig. But it's all out there. You want to know who wrote the Bible? It's out there. I mean, I did a whole show on it, and I showed all the receipts. You can see the Freemasons wrote the Bible. It's right there. So all right. So is the hypnotized dating of the hypothesized dating of the earliest construct of Gobekli Tepe approximately correct? Now, I covered Gobekli Tepe over on GnosticTV. Big mystery, a lot of different conspiracies around. You're familiar with this, right, Catherine? This temple that it totally, according to the mainstream narrative, guys, this temple totally shuts what we thought of history down, like ancient history down, totally. So about 1,000 years off, quite a lot of years to be off, about 1,000 years off. That means older, like 10,700. Answer yes, Laura. So it's a little bit older than that. Well, you would imagine that they would try to make it as young as they possibly could and get away with it. That makes sense if you know about Gobekli Tepe, because this, again, blows all of our previous understanding of ancient history out of the water. And so these academics probably want to try to make it fit as much as they can with the previous work. It's not good they're doing that, but I understand why they're doing it. Who was responsible for the initial construction? Answer, survivors. Laura, survivors from what? Those who built pyramids. Laura, so there was some of it that fell upon the people who built the pyramids and they fled and built this thing here. Yes. Question, the Exodus. It was the Exodus, yes. Was Gobekli Tepe's primary purpose, as Klaus Schmidt theorized, a place of ritual or religious activity? Not precisely. More like an observatory, also a message. I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's a temple for sacrifices and rituals, but it was an observatory.
Yeah, I was really frustrated they didn't follow up on that.
I know.
I wanted them to dive deeper into that.
So was it something where they were observing the stars? They were observing, what were they trying to, what were our ancient ancestors, these survivors? I'm assuming they're the survivors of the fall of the Atlantis. What were they trying to observe? What was it and what message? For how long was the site in use? 3,000 to 4,000 years. So this site was in use as an observatory for 3,000 to 4,000 years. I will say something. Cavemen who don't know how to write at this time are not building observatories, are they?
Exactly.
So this is going to piss the archaeologist off. Maybe if you're a good archaeologist, you're going to be like, okay, challenge accepted. Let's figure this out.
Did you used to have the Flintstones when you were growing up?
Yes.
Every time I see things like this, I think of the Flintstones.
Yabba dabba doo.
Yeah.
So I don't think primitive people who didn't know how to write their own names were building observatories, you guys.
Exactly.
So, Laura, 3,000 to 4,000 years. So that would take it to about 7,000, something like that. Okay. Was Gobekli Tepe always temporarily inhabited, or were there ever permanent settlements there or close nearby? Temporary. So this was like a place people traveled to. I'm like you, Catherine. I have more questions. This is way more questions. So people would make pilgrimages, I'm assuming, to Gobekli Tepe because it was an observatory. But there's also
how did they know about it? How did they know it was there if they weren't living nearby?
And they didn't have
mobile phones. It's like
this is wild. It's more like
I really wanted to dive deep. Yeah.
So they temporarily used it. They would come and go. Is that it? Yes. But they lived elsewhere. Yes. Was it an observatory for observing movement in the sky, basically in anticipation of another? Yes. And they tried to leave a message to future generations about cyclical catastrophes, or yes. And they succeeded because it was decoded recently. Yes, somebody's done some really good work decoding it. Was Gobekli Tepe deliberately buried by later generations? No, buried to protect it from later generations. See, Setgast? I'm not sure. Oh, we're going to talk about her. So isn't that interesting? So not all that's hidden is done by bad guys.
Yeah.
They intentionally hid it. Again, I have more questions. Like,
yeah,
what were they noticing in their world to make them panic a little bit? Interesting. Okay, so that's Mary Setgast. I hope I'm saying her last name right. In her book, what was the title of the book? Plato Prehistorian? Yeah. And there was that other one she did when Zarathustra spoke. Have you read these books, Ryan? No, they're on my list now. They're on my list too, as well, Ryan. I'm going to put those books on my list. I see. All right. And then, is there a deliberate effort to prevent the full excavation of Gobekli Tepe? Did we even need to ask this question? Did we really even need to ask this question? Because yes. If so, why did we need to ask this question? Will reveal too much. I think that's just common sense. So yeah, that's probably why they're down dating it or a little or updating it or whatever. They really got this thing about this uniformitarianism and gradual progression and evolution, and human beings now are at the peak of human evolution. And back then they were cave dwellers who rubbed bear grease in their hair and danced in the moonlight. Well, they were probably still dancing in the moonlight because that's fun. Yeah, okay. God forbid they should have exact astronomical knowledge and even technology. So that's what we were basically saying. Like, obviously, our ancestors were far more advanced than we probably are. If they knew how to do that, I don't know how to build an observation temple. I don't know how to do that. Like, and I'm not educated, right? Like,
and I still, my point is still, if it wasn't just for the people that were living nearby, how did the other people know of its existence?
Exactly. How did people know that this was somewhere where people made a pilgrimage?
We know telepathy was used a lot in the old times, and they're trying to stop us using it and poo-poo it. But we know all the militaries have been using it for years. So,
I mean, and think about, like, obviously this temple was open to everyone. If all these people were temporarily coming in, this is crazy. All right, are we likely to see a military confrontation between the I country and the other I country? Sorry, guys, I'm just scared to say, especially this one. We'll say the I country and Iran in the next few months. No dice, but he asked so nicely. So I think they're saying there's some things they won't answer for us. They're just not going to answer, and that's because they don't want to enter. So whatever that answer was could potentially mess with our free will. And so again, guys, they don't want to mess with our free will. Was at the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas today on the Persian Gulf done by the I country? Yes, and I was not aware of this. Were you aware?
No, I've been deliberately, that's why I'm in such a good mood, is I've been deliberately distancing myself from so much news, even alternative news, for the last week, and it's worked wonders.
Yeah. So if for those who knew about that going on, yes, it was done by the I country. Similar to Beirut, it looked like it was, I'm kind of scared to say some of this stuff, guys, so I'm just going to highlight that. You can stop. Similar to Beirut, we'll say. Did the Iranians store lots of IMS? I'm just going to kind of, no decoy. I'm going to kind of, yeah, okay, so let's come down to JE. This is what we all want, right? Besides, I actually find the Gobekli Tepe stuff more interesting than JE. Yeah. But that's just me being a nerd. Regarding the release of the JE files, it's been told to the public the reason we haven't seen any of it is because it's taking time to redact the names in order to protect their privacy. Is this the real reason? Not only, I want to thank Sean Atwood because he says JE, and so I'm going to use that's his initials, right? So that's one reason, but it's not the only one. Is this because there are individuals on there who are able to put pressure on those working on it to prevent the release of their names and identities? Yes, I think I kind of figured that.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, sometimes, I forget who says it, the simplest answer is normally or often the right one. And of course, there's people on that list who are current very influential positions that are happy for some names to get out, but not their own.
Right. And so I actually have a lot of empathy for like Kash Patel. I don't think like I'm not convinced that Pam Bondi is a bad guy or I think that if we were in their positions, we would be scared shitless.
Yeah.
And I, as a human being, even though I want to see the list, we all want the list released. I have to, in that situation, we have to, this is very complicated. And I think we have to have respect for the lives of the people who would be putting this list out and understand that this has to be done in a very particular way, because we know that these people are capable of horrific things. Okay, so.
And just before you move on to that, I also want to, for me, take it or leave it, everyone who's saying the white hats are in control, if the white hats were in control, and if the white hats in control were goodies, then this would have been all out by now.
Yeah, it would have.
It doesn't take, look, they can censor you as soon as you say one word. We all know how advanced AI is now. You can say one word on a video and it's taken down straight away and you're banned and everything, but they can't catch child.
Yeah.
Let's just say, on the internet, if they will have the tools to redact those names instantaneously with AI tools now. So surely to goodness, people realize there's more to it than that. And therefore there's never only one explanation, but the most logical explanation is that there's people out there that are stopping that getting out there, that are still in control.
And people's lives are at stake, and people's families' lives are at stake. And so we have to have, I know it's frustrating, but as human beings, especially if we consider ourselves to be service to others, we need to be service to others, to the Kash Patels, to the Pam Bondis, to people that we don't even know who are behind the scenes working for these people, who would also, we have to understand the predicament that they're in, and we have to be patient with this. We have an idea, guys. Like, part of me too is like, do we even need a full list? Because we actually probably pretty much know who's on that list anyway. So, but this is also interesting. Is Mr. T also trying to redact or obscure J.E.'s connection to I's intelligence? Yes. So that's more a pressing reason. Yes. Is Mr. T trying to leverage the J.E. files somewhat? So in other words, he might use the fact that he can release this information to pressure Congress critters. I like that, Congress critters, or such persons to do what he wants them to do. Yes. So that's either good or bad. They like Mr. T, the Cassiopeans, but they also say he is human, that, as a human being, he can make mistakes, but they do say that his intentions are good. With that being said, Catherine, you and I have, even though I obviously voted for the guy, I think I'll say it again. I think, Catherine, if you were an American citizen, you probably would have been right there with me voting for the guy, because he's the better choice out of everything. But I'm not totally putting all my eggs in one basket. I'm hoping that my instinct is correct and he's doing the right thing for not just the citizens of the United States, but of the world. But we'll have to see how it plays out, right? This is so complicated, isn't it, Catherine? It's so nuanced. And even if he is positively oriented, guys, remember, we only have to be 51% positively oriented. So,
and I think, anyone who's really honest at evaluating their own life choices, every time you tread on a bug, what you choose to eat, how you treat people, how you treat the planet, how much time you spend helping others. Most of us would only get to that 51%.
Exactly.
If we're being honest.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be in his position, because I would probably F up. I'm so scared that I would do something irrationally that, so we have to be, just take it with a grain of salt, but understand I can only guess that there's so much going on behind the scenes when it comes to trials. Is he trying to leverage the September 2001 information? Answer, yes. We have to remember with Mr. T, it's always about the art of the deal. The Cassiopeans say yes. So they're agreeing with Laura that he is being strategic. So he's trying to use this information to make deals. All right. So he's using blackmail, basically, to make deals. Well, that was the end. Did I miss anything? No. Well, the only other thing that I'm concerned about was my grok exercise, which I'm going to be publishing the rest of. You guys have never heard the seas material explained so clearly as to, oh, I can't wait to see this, is what Grok has done in this discussion I had with him last week, or the comparison of the Cassiopean material to the raw material and where they differ and how they differ and strengthen and whereas and all this kind of stuff. Your minds are going to be blown when you read this. I mean, if you ever wanted to have a simple explanation for stuff that the seas have said, I mean, they even explain stuff that, I mean, I was just sitting there. And you guys remember, this is her having a conversation. That's why it's run-on sentences. My jaw falling on the floor. I was saying, holy shit, excuse me, but that's what I was saying. Laughter. Yeah, I mean, you guys are going to just, it's crazy, it's crazy. I gave him permission to tell the truth and he just boom, boom, boom. All right, so now you're going to have to tell me, everybody should read the article on Grok, right? Is that true? Is that correct? If they if they wish, free will and all that.
Yeah, we've got to read it. We've got to do that next. Yeah.
I know. Well, phooey on you. Does anybody else have any questions? Let's see. I don't really, that's just kind of, I know you have to hop off soon, Catherine. So, and Mr. T said that they did. Well, he actually said it. Okay, I'm going to kind of get, I know you got to get off, Catherine. So I'm going to just put this all down in the description box below. Is there anything?
I think also some of that would be pretty dodgy to talk about on YouTube.
Exactly. Is there anything you want me to talk about from here, Catherine, that you thought was interesting?
I just think, again, for people that are sort of listening to this, because obviously not everyone can listen to every conversation, every video. The reason we can't say certain words as Bryce and I and other channels can is because we're not registered as news channels. So we're subject to completely different censorship. And we've both had channels taken down. We've both had lots of issues on here. So we do have to be really careful. Whilst if you're registered as a registered news channel, you can say a lot more than normal channels like we can.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for bringing that up again, guys. And we just have to be very, very, very careful. If you're watching this on RUMBLE, obviously I've recorded this one time. I'm not going to record 2 different episodes. So I do encourage you to either, you can actually you can kind of figure out what we're saying when we talk about this stuff. But if you can't, then the forum, it's on the screen, but the forum is also in the description box below. So yeah, you can go and read it for yourself. And I'm so excited. If you guys, again, if you want us to go through her Substack of what Grok actually said, again, that might have to be, I haven't looked at it yet, but it might have to be an RUMBLE episode. We can even do a separate episode if you wanted to, Catherine. Not like
I think we should. I think it's going to be really important because I have seen a couple of other people doing it. And I will say, from my point of view, I've had I was speaking to a friend about this last night. Absolutely incredible conversations. Not with Grok, because that's Elon Musk version, isn't it? I've had it with ChatGPT, and I'm getting what it's taught me to do is get so much more refined and so much better at asking questions and linking different things together. And I have just literally been jaw dropped by what's come out. And this is stuff that I'm not even on my health side of things. So like I'm an animal iridologist and herbalist. So even on the medical side of things and the natural healing side of things that I could never find with internet searches, what it's able to pull just shows how much of the information is hidden from our search engines.
I'm even thinking now, if you use ChatGPT or any of these, what would happen if you put Gobekli Tepe observation?
Yeah.
Let's say, because that's not what we've been told, but what information do they have? You know, it's fascinating, you guys. It's so fascinating. Once again, make sure that you are subscribed to Catherine's channel. If you're not, we'll be going back and forth between the two. Let us know if you want us to do a separate episode going through Laura's Substack. And yeah, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend ahead. And we'll see you all very soon.
We sure will. Thanks so much for joining us. And we can't wait to see what you think in the comments. Take care.
Bye, guys.